Hello everybody, it's me, the Dark Shops here, bringing you back another traditional video of the channel. And today we're going to be looking at some more Dry Brook and Esopus Valley models I've made in the meantime. Sorry for the slight delay on this one, as normally I'd pump this stuff out on Thursdays, but we had to hold it up a bit so I could try and squeeze out a few more of the coaches that you see in the background. But we're here, so let's skip the excessive talk and get into it, shall we? Now, first things first, we'll look at the newest diesels on the roster, at least in terms of my construction. First up, we've got SD9 number 8919, or Bobo, as apparently this one is the only other named engine I could find of the original sort of liveried batch based on what I found on the forums. And that's a little quirk that I found interesting enough to keep incorporated. So on both sides of the short hood, you've got Bobo. Why it's called Bobo instead of something like Coco, considering it's a CC wheel arrangement, is beyond me, but it works very well. So let's give it a once over. And it is effectively just a larger version of 403 back there in the shed. And there we go. So yeah, it was not hard to get her up to scratch, but that is 8919 here. And now we get on to the twins, as I call them, or I guess to run off with their own numbers, 7975 and 7966. Now these two, I can imagine, were acquired at least in original sort of setting by Conrail. Basically, effectively coming into the ranks at a D-Bev whenever Conrail went bust. So here they are, painted up as best I can. I removed the little flares that they have on their hoods in the actual model, because I'm trying to keep it a bit standard. Plus, it was a lot less taxing to keep it that way. But they have little details, like their lights up above on the cab and on the trail of their long hood. So let's give you a once over again, and they're both near identical entirely. The only differences are by a few inches or a little centimeters. That's only because of my method of construction, but they are more or less similar. Down to the very last stripe. And with those two done, we can start working on a bit more of the roster, as there are a few numbers that I've jotted down that appeared during the construction series to get through before we can get on to the more extreme roster numbers, which I'm currently actually going up to tally. So once I have the full tally of how many diesels are on the roster, plus how many surge and stars we have here, I'll probably give an update whenever I do the next video touching up on the D-Bev. But while these three are amazing, they are not the biggest change that has occurred, as bringing out Lucky once more, I have once again touched up Tender and the Canteen, with the Canteen now resembling the one you'd see behind Reading and Northern 425, though obviously having to be different. And now, instead of taking the style of Atlanta and West Point 290's Tender, it follows along the partner of AWP 290, that being Savannah and Atlanta 750, as that was the original, or my first favorite steam locomotive, and the introduction to this sort of lifestyle of mine. So, it's a nice homage, and as you can see, as contrasting with every other model I've shown up here, it actually has a coal load, and is the first of many to hopefully come with coal loads, though it will be infrequent, as so far my supply is small, as this was more of a test that it has surprisingly passed very well. And here you see on the Tender, you've got ladder, the water hatch, and now the loaded coal bunker. And outside of that, nothing up front has changed on Lucky. So, pioneering one more. And now, with the engines out of the way, we are on to the rolling stock. We're going to be starting with X Long Island MP70 number 1294. Now, my reasons for including such a oddball double-decker, specifically in the fact of what it is, or what it barely borders, is simply because I figured having a heavyweight styled coach that it effectively has double the capacity would be pretty enticing for tourism. Plus, as you can see with all of them, they have a unified livery at last, borrowing mainly off of number 56 Fleischmann's over here. So, yes, every coach has a livery and number painted on, and 1294 acting as a bit of a high capacity special has its place in the excursion fleet so far. And every one of these cars you'll see, such as this Dome car number 55 or the Combine number 8120, each have some basis to an actual coach that is either surviving or has basically barely survived. Namely, 8120, I believe, is actually preserved somewhere. 55 was on the Conrail office car special trains, and 1294 was on a special rare tour. 307 back there is a Central New Jersey coach. Number 12 right there, which is pitted up as a stainless steel sort of car, is off of the OCS as well. And in the background, as you can tell by the indent, we've got a Pullman sleeper called St. Louis. No number given because it didn't have one to begin with. And then back there to fall back with the 307 are two other ex-CMJ coaches, number 1003 and 1099 here. As I basically really did take a lot of inspiration from the Reading and Northern, or Reading and Blue Mountain and Northern here, with the idea of having more heavyweights take center stage in the contests that would usually be a lot of lightweights. So I am improving of this. And then up here, acting as the tool car, is an X-Penzi X42 class boxcar number 2548. This would usually be wedged right behind the diesel helpers on any excursions, as again, the D-Bev's route has basically been extended all the way up to Mantua, basically bordering Canada and having an exchange point with CP and CN. Now, this may come off as an unsurprising thing, but in typical fashion, one little side note or quirk of this thing is that it is a lot smaller than the normal X42 class boxcar, as such a twin door behemoth would normally be a lot longer. But here, we make do. And here you can see it has a special logo, being much more shaped like a New York Central-esque logo. Likely because it is running technically, because the D-Bev does run over New York Central trackage for the most part. So hey, little homage. But outside of that, that is more or less all that has changed around here. Coal loads are now a thing, more diesels, and a unified livery. And as you can see back there, we have another set of coaches on the way. They could not make it in, be constructed in time for this video, so you'll just have to wait a little bit longer. And as for coaches like the observation car back there, I will have to go over them in a repaint at some point later on the line. But for now, this has been the Dark Shops, and I will see you next time for another video, whether it be Forza Motorsport 6 or this stuff. Farewell.